time for tiny form factor. Woo! Welcome to Simple Rud. On this episode we have the Silverstone Milo 10. So you've heard of small form factor, which is under 20 liters. Well, we're going to call this tiny form factor as it's under 4 liters. And the whole goal with this case, of course, is integrated graphics. With AMD's new 5700G coming out, integrated graphics are getting better and better and leave something like this more optional with, you know, basic gaming. So let's get this thing out of the box and really look at the quality and the options. Now before moving forward, don't forget to subscribe, as I will be getting my hands on the 5700G and seeing what this can do. Not to mention, finally got a graphics card, so I'll be doing some more stuff with that as well, so stay tuned. Now back to this. So this is what comes in the box. Now this actually has some weight to it. It is not light. Had to get my eye fix it. So back to what I was saying. Decent amount of weight to it. There's not a whole lot in this box, but there are actually a lot of options in something this small. Now as you can tell, there's a space right here. That is because this is as big as this case gets. Now in this option, you're looking at 3.7 liters. When we switch it over, it'll be down to 2.8 liters. Now, there is no room for a graphics card. You have your I/O and spot for fans. And that's kind of your options. You can't even put a normal power supply in it because, well, it's not much bigger than a power supply. So that is another video I will be doing as well, because as I started to look into it, I had no idea about the Pico PSU. And, well, there's probably others who don't either. So I'm going to get one and I'm going to walk through the steps of what that takes. Of course, because with something like this, you have no other options. So that's what you do. Now with that, you're not going to get 600 watts. You're not going to get 1,000 watts. You're going to get 300 or less. Maybe get creative and fit something that'll do 400, but that's pushing it. So a system like this, you're looking at probably a goal of 200 watts. Now with the 5700G's TDP of 65 watts, you're probably looking pretty realistic. And you know, another concept that comes into play is this doesn't have enough room to cool 600 watts worth of heat, even if you could get that much power supply in here. So it's really not, you know, a goal of something like this. Something like this is more of, you know, you slap it on the back of your TV and you use it for a home theater system, or you know, the 5700G performs well enough, you use this as kind of a travel case and you take it to your friends when you want to play something. But that's kind of it. You know, you could probably do a NOS system. There are some options we'll go through of, you know, solid states and I believe hard drives. And with the lifted one, you can fit in a slim drive. People still do drives. Most of your high-end cases don't even have disk drive slots anymore, so you know, I've moved away from it. But that doesn't mean you can't have one, you know, external. Let's get this thing torn apart and go through all the parts and all the options. The first disassembly of this is a matter of about 5 screws. You've got 2 in the back, which hold your panels. And then when you get to the inside, oh, actually that's wrong. You have 2 on this too, so you're looking at 7 screws. It's wrong, good. You have 1 on this. It's 1. Okay. So 1 screw there, and then you've got 2 holding the top and 1 holding the bottom. Now this top does latch on there, so when you get it undone, you can't just pull it or you risk breaking these plastic tabs. So pop up the top, pull it forward, and then pop out the bottom. Now these panels are plastic, you know, so you do risk breaking them. They do have a nice, you know, anodized aluminum look, which does add a little bit of quality, but it's still plastic. Be careful. One thing to note, if you are switching from this, which it comes installed in, to this, you do have to move over the USB ports and your power button connection. Everything else on this though is steel, and it is nice. It's got some weight to it. They were prepped to give you a quality product. Now, as I mentioned, you have your two options, right? Your 3.7 liter top and your 2.8. Now for options, we'll start with the 2.8 liter. I do want to note that something both of these do offer is they have hole spacing on the top of them, which will allow you a 120 mil or 140 mil fan. So you can go with the slim fans that Noctua offers, like the 15 millimeter thickness, or you can get creative and put the full 25. So these do go on easy. Pop it into place, slide it forward, 2 screws on the back, and you're on there. Now where your options come into play are with this bracket right here. Now with your standard top, your 2.8 liter case, you have basically 2 options, and I'm sure you can get creative and find other things to do. You have slotted allowance for a 7 millimeter thick solid state, and you can fit 2 of them on here with your spacing. Now that does only allow for 31 millimeter spacing for your cooler. That does make me a little nervous, because what you're going to see with that is you're only going to have a couple millimeters of spacing between your cooler and your solid state, which could restrict the amount of air you're getting in there to that cooler. And I don't know that you have enough room in this thing to truly go passive cooling unless you're really putting out a low end of wattage, like possibly AMD's options of 35 watt processors. Now you do have these spots here, which will allow a 50 millimeter fan. Those can only be 10 millimeters thick. So without getting, again, creative, you're not going to fit Noctua fans in there, sadly. I say that, but I'm sure someone's done it, and, you know, prove me wrong. I would love to see it. I love Noctua fans. Their cooling is pretty much unbeatable when it comes to airflow. Moving on. Now with your 3.7 liter, you know, you have the same process of snapping this into place, sliding it forward, and 2 screws on the back. However, you do have a lot more options, as you could, I believe if you got creative, you could put 2 solid states on the bottom, 2 solid states on the top, and still have your, you know, your normal allotted 31 millimeter cooling. Now those do have to be thinner SSDs. Make sure when you're doing this that you're looking at those specs and you're not getting something that may not fit when you get that far. Now the other options that, you know, your additional height will add is this little bracket in here. See if we can get this guy popped out. Okay, struggled way more than I should have on that. Now, simply pops out. You do have these plastic tabs. I almost broke them, so, you know, be careful with what you're doing. Okay, so with that popped out, that does allow you the option of an optical drive and a solid state drive, which still only allows you your 31 millimeter clearance for a CPU cooler. Now, with the hard drive installed, you have even less cooler space. In fact, you're limited to 29 millimeters. So your cooler is getting smaller, but again, probably not going to be a lot of heat. So if you're using this as, you know, just a theater and all it's doing is running a movie, it's not really going to be system demanding, and it's not going to, you know, create a lot of heat. If you're trying to game with it, or, you know, trying to video edit, you know, you're gonna start seeing some more heat and possibly run into issues. Now you still do have a couple more options. So if you use this bracket for your solid state, you have it lifted, you have 47 millimeters of clearance for your cooler. So the option I like most, because I prefer using M2s, is to actually take this bracket off. And this will be the option I go when I get the 5700G. And I test this thing for, you know, starter gaming bundle, or, you know, possibly something simple to throw in a backpack and take to your friends. So when you remove this bracket, that is what allows you the 43 millimeter clearance with your standard top. Now, with this top, you are allowed 63 millimeters of cooler clearance. Quite decent. Now, you can also use some of that clearance to fit your 25 mil thickness, fan. So with the 140 fan on the top of this thing, you won't need your 50 millimeter fans, and you do have, airflow on both sides. So that will clear it out. So now that we've got through the CPU cooler options, we'll move on to another couple cool options that I like. So if you're going to go with the Silverstone's optional power supply, it has a DC to DC board, which you can see these little screw holes right here, and that is where that board will mount. You're stuck with the brick power supply no matter what, just like the old Xboxes have, the laptops have. You got that power brick, and that's what's going to really supply your power. And your board's just going to make it ready to go to your PC. Now there are a couple other options I've thought about, but I haven't proven them out, so I'm not really going to bring them up. But what you also see for your Pico style PSUs are some of the options. That little board is just mounted right on your 24 pin on the motherboard. So that'll have all of your connectors you need to power your motherboard and your CPU, while still having your connector for the external power brick. Now with that set aside, the other thing I like about this, even though looking through monitors you don't have a ton of options to do it, you do have a VESA mount bracket. Now that's pretty awesome, because let's say you look at Asus's Tough series monitor. Now it has a stand that's not height adjustable. It does tilt, or swivel, sorry. Now, put that bracket on, you can hide this and all of your cables right behind your monitor. So you literally have all of the desk space. Now, of course, when you mount this on the VESA onto your monitor, you're no longer VESA mounting your monitor. But it's still an option, and it's a rather cool option, especially if the 5700G is, decently powered. Because then you throw this on the back of your monitor and you pretty much have a gaming on the go rig. You load up your monitor, keyboard, your mouse, go to a friend's house, and you're set up and you're ready. You're not bulking that big old tower, which we've probably all done. I know I have many times, and it sucked. It made me regret having the super tower that I had, because everyone else was easy set up and I took forever. But, on with the story. So with the case, you do have a bag of hardware and zip ties and little feet mounts for the bottom. So if you are setting it on a desk, however way, it's going to be more stable. A little bit wrong with the use of this. So in order to fit a hard drive, you've actually got standoffs in here, and those standoffs will lift this bracket and allow the hard drive underneath. So I apologize for any confusion, that was my bad. It's still an option, you can still fit that. And really, Silverstone shows you a lot of options, and their work instructions are very vague, and it's kind of just a, remove this, but it doesn't tell you how to. But, continuing on, if you get creative, there are actually a decent amount of options you can do with this case. And I had tossed around, getting rid of this and making my own bracket to possibly do like a 120 mil AIO. That's overkill, but that's what I enjoy doing, is going overkill for no apparent reason. But the one thing that, you really need to think about when you're building this is going to be, your power delivery, making sure you have enough power for the components you're putting in here. If you're going with a higher end RAM, that's gonna, draw a little more power. If you're trying to do a higher series Intel processor, that's gonna demand more power. In fact, I would be weary about putting a K series in this. I'm sure you can get enough cooling to do it, but it's not going to be easy, and it's not going to be your standard. That's going to be your enthusiast level, and you're really probably not going to get the benefits. I say that after, you know, just putting a case series in, you know, an 8-liter case. But I did have to, you know, cut down the amount of power, and I'm not getting that full case series. I just did it because I wanted to see if I could. You know, comment down below on what you would do with this, or, you know, if this is even something you're interested in. My main goal, of course, is to see what the 5700G can do. And, you know, hopefully I can get my hands on stock, because we all know how stock has been going this year. In fact, it's taken me months to get my hands on a graphics card, but I do have that coming up too. So I plan on getting back to, you know, some cooler tests, some more builds, some more graphics card tests, and really keep these videos pumping out for you guys so you're getting your content. So I appreciate all of you who have subscribed, and, you know, those who haven't, please do. And, you know, let's keep going on these videos, and I promise to bring you the content, and you just got to direct me in what direction you want that content to go. Do you prefer, you know, the cases? Do you prefer monitors? Do you prefer AIOs? Do you prefer the whole thing? Now, as soon as graphics cards become more well, available, I will start pumping out more builds. But it's been difficult, and I don't have a store nearby to even hope, like a micro center, that stock will be in play. Now that I've rambled on, let's call an end to this. And again, thank you.